Gold prices hit a new record high amid growing concerns of a new trade war between the US and China and Donald Trump's comments on Gaza. 2 years after the disaster of the century, earthquake victims in Turkey have already moved into their new homes. And we look at the unemployment rate in the South Asian region amid economic slowdown. Hello, I'm Taiba Aiden with the latest business and finance news here on TRT World. Gold prices reached a new all-time high on Wednesday following the US president's comments about the future of Gaza and over fears of a renewed trade war between the US and China. Spot gold rose around 0.6% to $2,860. That's after Beijing retaliated to Donald Trump's 10% tariffs on Chinese goods by hitting US imports with up to 15% levies and put several companies, including Google, on notice for possible sanctions. Trump said on Tuesday that he's in no hurry to speak to Chinese President Xi Jinping to try to defuse the trade tensions between the world's two largest economies. Several Fed officials have warned the Trump administration's plans for trade tariffs come with inflation risks. Let's get more on this now with Josh Mahoney, Chief Analyst at Scope Markets. Josh, now investors are seeking safety assets amid growing concerns over the US-China trade war. How could this new trade war hinder global growth?
Yeah, well, as any good economist knows, a breakdown in trade is not necessarily good for either side of the argument. And certainly when we're looking at the outlook for growth, China has already been in a bit of a predicament over recent years anyway. So the idea that we're going to see weaker output from them, weaker exports from the Chinese certainly doesn't bode well for global growth. Of course, there's a number of countries, the likes of Australia, New Zealand in particular, that are heavily reliant on the Chinese economy and demand from China for them to grow as well. So there's knock-on implications for countries that aren't necessarily hit by tariffs in themselves. But given the fact that we've seen this stay of execution for a month when it comes to Mexico and when it comes to Canada, there are hopes that, given the fact that China have said that they would impose their retaliatory measures on the 10th, it gives a little bit of time for them to have these discussions, despite, as you said, the fact that Donald Trump said he's not necessarily in any great rush to kick those conversations off.
And are we seeing Donald Trump's comments on the US taking over Gaza also having an impact on gold prices?
It's always quite difficult for us to ascertain exactly what's moving gold prices per se. I would say that by and large, the potential breakdown in terms of international relations between the US and other countries is key. We're talking about this whole de-dollarization story and the potential move away from the dollar. One way of doing that and infuriating the US is to buy and sell commodities around the world in something other than US dollars. But one way to get around it and not necessarily risk the wrath of Donald Trump is to simply buy gold instead of US treasuries. And I think that's something that the BRICS nations have been doing in particular. So certainly if you see breakdowns between the US and different countries around the world, I think it really just pushes people away from US assets and US treasuries and more towards the likes of gold. And we have seen that really being increasingly stockpiled over treasuries over recent years.
And as we see more investors move towards safe haven assets, how soon are we likely to see gold hit that $3,000 mark?
Well, look, I mean, you know, we started the year over $200 lower than where we are now. You know, we're about a month in, and we're less than $200 away from that 300,000 mark. So the current pace that we're going, we should see it by the end of February. But of course, markets don't necessarily move in a straight line. It's just at the moment, it feels like we need to find an excuse not to be bullish gold. There's so many different things that appear to be lining up at the moment. And the trend is so strong, you've just got to try and ride it. And certainly at the moment, there's nothing standing in its way as we seem to be hitting record highs on a daily basis.
All right, Josh Mahoney, Chief Market Analyst at Scope Markets. Thank you very much for that analysis. Now, the devastation caused by the twin earthquakes that struck Turkey's southeast provinces left a massive mark on the country. 2 years on, the rebuilding and repairing process is still ongoing. The area hit is a key contributor to Turkey's agricultural economy and the government's efforts to revive the sector are looking good. Emre Boz reports.
They were Turkey's worst earthquakes in recent history. Hundreds of buildings flattened and millions of people displaced from their homes. Today, those in the earthquake-affected areas are still trying to rebuild their lives in one of Turkey's most important agricultural hubs. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, these 11 provinces make up 20% of Turkey's agricultural output. The region, known for producing citrus fruit, cotton and pistachios, all of which contribute a good part to Turkey's exports. In 2022, agricultural exports made up more than 44% of total exports. The earthquake-hit region makes up 15% of land used for agriculture in Turkey. 25% of Turkey's fruit, beverages and spices come from these provinces, with Adana and Hatay known for its vegetable crops.
After the devastation of the century, in this region we mobilized the Century of Reconstruction. In 2023 and 2024, we spent a total of 2.6 trillion Turkish liras. We allocated a total of 584 billion liras from the 2025 budget for the rapid construction and development activities of our cities.
And some of the budget has been going to key sectors like farming.
The state gave us the exact number of the animals that perished, and the same number of cows and heifers were given to us. Our heifers are giving birth now. They supported us in terms of animal feed, and God bless them. All levels of the state helped us.
Though the destruction was great, with the help from the government, people here are getting their lives back to normal. Emre Boz, TRT World.
For more, we're joined by Şuay Nilhan Açıkalın in Ankara, a board member at the Healthy Cities National Network of Turkey. Good to have you on the programme with us. Now, this earthquake has been dubbed the disaster of the century. How is Turkey coming back from this?
Thank you. Actually, there is a multi-level and a multi-dimensional policies has been applied for the recovering. First of all, after the rescuing process was finished, there was a cleaning of the rubbling on those cities, which takes a lot of time than expected. And then the government started to basically apply the multi-dimensional recovery plan. It includes economical, social, and psychological plan at the same time towards those people who are affected by the earthquakes. And when it comes to the numbers, almost 1 trillion Turkish liras was allocated by the government to those cities from the 2024 budget. And the objective was basically reconstruct those cities in a resilient manner to again against any earthquake or natural disaster. And last things, I think much more important, just only 1.5 year, government successfully managed to give almost 50,000 housing units to those cities and the delivery and the beneficiaries within these cities.
And we know hundreds of businesses were destroyed in this earthquake, but we are seeing many of them rebuilding. What measures has the government taken to boost SMEs?
The economic recovery is one of the biggest and the vital plan of these, the multidimensional recovery plan. The most important and the first day policies that apply was the relief programs, including the free loans and the tax exceptions. It has been continued for 1.5 years after the earthquake happened, and there is another specific regional economic programs also were introduced to each cities in a different manner, and mostly the tailor-based policies, both in the cities and in general sense in the earthquake zone. And some of the sectors, especially in the economy, for example, the Gaziantep has a very big industrial capacity that affected by the earthquake. It also used the recovery plan and the relief program, including the tax exemptions of the government.
And the 11 affected provinces account for around 20% of the country's agriculture. How did the earthquake impact this vital sector?
Since the first day, it turns a big problem not only for the national economy, but also feeding the regional places and the people over there. That's why government directly launched the agricultural and the livestock support initiatives, and also make the feeds and the loans assistance towards the farmers as well. And there's a still ongoing, again, the regional tailor-based program over there for some specific groups, like for example, the sheeping and the other livestocks, turns to be much more efficient in a very short time compared to the devastating results of the earthquakes.
All right, Shrai Nilhan Achikalın, we will have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, after years of conflict, Syria stands ready to restart building, and Turkey is stepping up as a strategic partner in Syria's economic recovery. Its leading business association, Musiad, is organizing the Turkey-Syria Economic Cooperation Summit, where the country's role in Syria's reconstruction, along with diplomatic and economic solutions, will be discussed. Rumeysa Chodar has more from the border city, Gaziantep.
Following the fall of Assad regime, Syria's political transition has completely reshaped regional dynamics. The 14-year war has caused the largest refugee crisis of our time, displaced more than 14 million people, and nearly half of the country has been destroyed. The estimated cost to rebuild the damage is up to $1 trillion. In addressing these geopolitical challenges, Turkey has adopted a multi-dimensional strategy aiming to rebuild Syria's devastated economy and infrastructure. Well, actually, the location is quite strategic, as Turkish provinces with geographical proximity like Gaziantep, Şanlıurfa and Mardin, they are seen as crucial players in Turkey's cross-border trade with Syria. And experts say that Turkey will be the vital player in bridging Syria's economic gap. And when we look at the recent trade figures, the export figures with Syria, export surged 32% compared to previous year. This marks actually a milestone between in the economic relations between these two nations, and of course an instant resulting from Turkey's multi-dimensional policy and close cooperation with Syria, as both countries are aiming to reach regional stability, economic recovery and renew partnership. These trade figures are expected to increase in the near future.
Now a quick look at some of the other top business stories from around the world. Car makers Honda and Nissan are reportedly considering abandoning their merger discussions, according to a local Japanese newspaper. The proposed $58 billion deal, which would form the world's fourth largest automaker, faces collapse after Honda suggested turning Nissan into a fully owned subsidiary. Nissan's shares surged by 7.4%, while Honda's rose by 4.2%. Oil prices edged lower following a volatile week of tariff announcements and delays on duties for Canada and Mexico. At the same time, President Trump signed a directive on Tuesday instructing Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent to impose tougher sanctions on Iran. As a result, Brent crude fell below $76 a barrel, while West Texas Intermediate hovered at around $72 a barrel. Shares in Alphabet fell 9% in extended trading after its cloud sales missed targets. The Google parent earned $2.15 per share on revenues of $96.4 billion in the fourth quarter. Meanwhile, its cloud business brought in $11.9 billion, missing expectations. Alphabet plans to increase spending to $75 billion this year as it expands AI investment. And Toyota's profit fell 28% in the third quarter to $8.3 billion, missing targets. Revenue rose to $84 billion, but vehicle sales dropped to 2.4 million. Net income grew to nearly $15 billion, and Toyota plans to open a new plant in Shanghai to make Lexus electric vehicles by 2027. Welcome back. The interim government of Bangladesh is coming under pressure to start delivering on its pledge to reduce youth unemployment. The issue led to the downfall of the country's former leader, Sheikh Hasina, last year, who was forced out after 15 years of authoritarian rule. But almost 3 million citizens remain jobless, including many well-educated young people. And they're demanding more than promises. They want action, as Mohammed Kamruzaman reports.
Muhammad Anisur Rahman is a farm worker in Bangladesh's southern district of Faridpur. He has 2 university degrees, but despite frequent efforts, he has failed to get a government job, something he blames on discrimination.
If our new head of state can curb corruption and illegal appointments and ensure jobs based on merit, many like me will get government jobs. If just illegal political appointments are stopped, many talented students from needy families will be employed.
Students believe the interim government hasn't done enough to overturn the quota system that triggered the ousting of Sheikh Hasina. That system reserved many public sector jobs for descendants of soldiers who had fought for independence in the war against Pakistan in 1971. Faisal Mia has a degree in agriculture. After failing foul of the quota system and failing to be selected for a government job, he paid a $13,000 bribe to get one, but that didn't work either. He then paid another $4,000 to an agent who offered him a lucrative job in Saudi Arabia.
There are huge numbers of Bangladeshis there who are workless. Fraud agents offer them restaurant visas or official visas, but it's all a fraud.
Student anger over the quota system boiled over last summer, leading to huge street protests and a deadly crackdown by the security forces. The interim government says it's determined to get a grip on the youth unemployment issue.
Obviously, the government of the Nobel laureate Professor Yunus, they have taken it as a #1 agenda that people should be given jobs, they should get employed. So for this reason, we are giving more emphasis on creating jobs as well as creating skilled manpower.
The current interim administration and the subsequent governments are expected to adopt long-term measures to sustainably control the unemployment problem. Analysts believe highly educated young adults are one of Bangladesh's most precious assets in one of the world's most densely populated countries. Creating more job opportunities and ensuring transparency in government positions is essential to ensure they are not frustrated and pushed into drug addiction or illegal migration. Mohammad Kamruzzaman, TRT World, Dhaka, Bangladesh.
Youth employment in South Asia is undergoing significant transformation, shaped by shifting economic trends and sectoral transitions. More young people are moving away from agriculture and into services, yet many still lack long-term job security. The youth unemployment rate hit a 15-year low of 15.1% in the region in 2023 and is projected to decline to 14.9% this year. Moving on, Barcelona is a city consumed by a crisis of accommodation. Soaring rent, mass tourism and investor-driven evictions are pushing long-time residents out. Furious local citizens are fighting back, resisting what they see as money-making takeovers of their communities. While some investment funds have responded by selling their assets, tensions remain high.
Barcelona's residents are reaching breaking point over a housing crisis and mass tourism. With 15 million visitors last year, property owners are opting for short-term rentals to maximize profits. A symbolic flashpoint for this struggle has become the Casa Ursola building. Catalan investment fund Leones is refusing to renew tenants' contracts and plans to convert the flats into short-term rental apartments. Josep, who has lived in the building for 23 years, is the first tenant facing eviction after resisting and attempting to negotiate a new contract with Leones.
From 2021, when this investment fund bought the building, it stopped renewing contracts and began evicting residents. Many neighbors have offered to take me in temporarily until I find somewhere else. I haven't thought about anything yet. I am just taking it one day at a time.
But landlords and authorities are facing growing resistance from residents who are mobilizing to defend their neighborhoods and keep them for those who live there.
The problem we have is that there is not enough supply to meet the high demand, especially in specific areas. In certain cities, although prices may be falling, the available supply is also decreasing because there are fewer incentives to make housing accessible to those who need it.
With negotiations proving difficult, residents see only one way forward: resistance.
They could easily make the decisions to prevent this from happening, but we are going to wait for them. These neighbors have decided to take a stand against speculative operations themselves, and if governments encourage them with tax incentives, we will stop them with resistance.
However, relief may come from another quarter.
Compared to other regions in Spain, Catalonia has far more regulations in the rental market. In the end, when there are so many measures and restrictions, it creates uncertainty for investors, and many choose to withdraw from the market altogether.
But that doesn't mean the crisis is anywhere near being resolved.
Investment funds are selling properties gradually as rental contracts expire, so there is no sudden surge in supply, and we do not expect this to have an impact on prices.
The situation is worsening by the month, with no resolution in sight. Renting in Spain is becoming out of reach for many. The average tenant would need their entire annual salary just to cover rent. With median prices over $1,100 a month, more people are staying at home longer or seeking alternatives. Experts warn that without careful intervention, the crisis could deepen. Neighbors celebrate after successfully preventing Giuseppe's eviction, but they know this is not a long-term solution.
What we need is not the understanding of these investment funds. We need security, rights, and laws that protect us.
Giuseppe may have resisted eviction for now, but uncertainty remains. With a new date marked in red on the calendar, neighbors are ready to return to the streets and stand their ground once again. Jaume Ulleros, TRT World, Barcelona.
Following a difficult year for the car industry, Toyota has preserved its title as the world's largest automaker by sales in 2024, and it's mostly thanks to its record-high hybrid sales. Panani Shasta has the details.
The Japanese car maker Toyota took the crown as the world's best-selling auto company. With over 10 million hybrid vehicles sold in 2024, it's their fifth straight year at the top of the table.
We are very pleased with our 2024 sales performance, which reflects customer support for our multi-path approach to electrified vehicles. Our growth is a result of offering customers the choice of technologies, combined with strong brand, product power, and excellent support from our retail partners.
Toyota Europe sold over 1,100,000 vehicles this year, an increase of 3% year-on-year, marking the fourth consecutive year that Toyota brand occupied the second best-selling passenger car brand in Europe. In North America, it reported an increase of 3.7% on a volume basis in the US, with sales of over 2.3 million vehicles. But looking forward, it's unclear how far the company will be affected by the return of President Trump, his attitude to tariffs, and electric vehicles.
And I will end the electric vehicle mandate on day one. Thereby saving the U.S. auto industry from complete obliteration, which is happening right now, and saving U.S. customers thousands and thousands of dollars per car.
Some American drivers like Jennifer List don't agree with Trump's policies on this.
I would just love if they would all take climate change take the politics out of it, and let's just figure out how to all thrive in what's clearly a warming world and take the time to really understand what's happening to our climate and Earth systems.
This was exactly what Toyota officials aimed at with their multi-pathway approach to electric car production. They say they strive to design low and zero-emission mobility solutions to meet regional needs and products that satisfy demand. Toyota Motors North America announced earlier that it has invested nearly $21 billion into its U.S. manufacturing operations to support electrification since 2020. And it's now gearing up for another busy year ahead. Pinar Nishasta, TRT World.
Well, that's all your business news for now. Thanks for watching.